Thank you for having me. It's brilliant to be here. I have slightly overloaded on cauliflower and chips out there as well, so I'm well carbo loaded for this. I spend most of my time working with big corporate customers, trying to get them to try and make sense of all of the great technology that Microsoft is endlessly churning out and developing and bringing into the market. But I want to focus today on this new thing that is ripping through everything that we're doing at the moment. It is AI, but it is an AI that is different, is unique to where we are at the moment. I haven't got the remote for the clicker. Sorry, I've just noticed that. I should have. Has someone nicked it? Who's nicked the remote? Shall I just give you a nod? Next slide, please. Next slide. So I thought I'd begin with a little story. And I look out amongst you and I can see a room full of athletes. So I thought I'd do a story about a running shoe, just to set the scene here. The story is really, it's my kind of epiphany of realizing how powerful this new AI that is ripping through our world is at the moment. It's a story that took place about 12 months ago. And that timescale is actually really quite significant, and we'll come back to that. A colleague of mine, so I can't really take a huge amount of credit for this at all, just did a little thought experiment and thought, what if I was designing and launching a new product in a consumer goods company, for instance? And what if that product was a running shoe? What would I put all of this technology to work? If I used that, what would it do? And so he set, in this case, ChatGPT at the internet and asked ChatGPT to identify the top 6 reviewed running shoes. It then asked ChatGPT to extract from those reviews what were the top 6 features of those top reviewed running shoes, and then resynthesize those 6 features and produce the best of the best running shoe. He then developed that using Copilot inside Word to create a product description, including the material description, an analysis of the volumes associated with those products, and threw all of that into Excel. Excel then, using Copilot again, crunched a wonderful business case for him. While he was at it, he put it into DALL-E, another foundational generative AI model that sits on OpenAI's platform, and produce this spectacular image that you're looking at on the screen here. And because clearly it was a product launch within a big corporate organization, no product launch in a corporate organization isn't real until it's been instantiated in PowerPoint. So he threw all of this raw material into Copilot in PowerPoint, and it produced an incredibly lavish boardroom pitch for him. Soup to nuts, the whole thing took less than 2 hours. I mean, when you looked inside the detail of it, it was pretty shaky, the whole proposition and everything. But there's something phenomenal happening there. There's something that is really quite significant in that space. Can we have the next slide, please? But let's go, before we develop that a little bit more, let's root ourselves, because we're all experts in here, and I'm aware that lots of this you're already aware of. So if you think I'm giving you just some of those dinner party anecdotes, we'll just run with it for the time being. We know that this technology has really been with us since the foundations of computing. Artificial intelligence, probably in the form that we called expert systems back in the day, was really about automating recipes of instructions with things like if this, then that statements. And all we've been doing is been throwing more and more horsepower, more and more silicon, if you like, at this, but also better and better mathematics at this. James, perhaps not some of the topological mathematics that you blew my mind with earlier, but all of that sophistication is just really ripping through this world. And we're now at a point where we've introduced this step change in technology called generative AI. And it does 2 really significant things for us in this space that we're trying to put it to work. It gives us this incredibly beguiling, contextual, natural language input. We're able to interface with this. It's changing UX. all of those role-based UX parameters that we used to think about when we were developing solutions, they become less and less important because the interface just understands us in the context within which we're engaging with it. But it's also incredibly powerful at making sense of the unstructured context of a lot of our engagements as well. So the reasoning ability of this technology is genuinely a real step change. The analogy I often use, and excuse me if you're a data scientist in the room, you'll probably twitch at this, but this is the analogy that I always use when I'm describing the step change. Imagine you're in a maze and you come to a junction in that maze and you're thinking, do I go left or right? Well, traditional AI is going to give you a really good statistical indicator about where your best chances are in that decision. Go left because you're more likely to be successful in navigating the maze. What we're now doing with these pre-trained foundational models is we're giving you the whole maze. So yes, you could turn left at that point, but actually right might get you to a better outcome at the end of the day. The ability for us to reason over the entire inference set is hugely powerful for us. So that's where we are, but we've got here incredibly fast as well. And I think back of that anecdote that I shared at the beginning about the running shoe. That was genuinely 12 months ago. You might have been rocking your ChatGPT limericks over your dinner party tables about a year ago, but it was only just coming into your life. The key thing is thinking where we're going to be in 12 months from now, because as you'll see, this is moving very, very quickly. Here's another little anecdote that shows you the power of how this actually manifests itself inside real corporate retail experiences at the moment. I'm in a room full of probably about 500 marketeers, giving them an explainer on what generative AI is. And I've got alongside me a brilliant tech expert, and she's running a demo of what happens when you use this technology in real life. We've set up actually a contrived retail e-commerce site here. But the setup here is that you want to go on holiday and you go to a travel retail site and you ask the platform, I want to go on holiday, can you give me some advice? And the platform basically takes you through a decision tree of guidance. It might start with saying, do you want to go somewhere warm? Do you want to go on an active holiday? Is it just you or is it a group of you? Where did you last go on holiday? And it's guiding you through all of this decision tree to a solution that is optimized both for you in a very hyper-personalized manner, but also obviously something that's optimized for the business. So it's thinking about the margin of the product that it's ultimately selling you. It's hooked up to probably their customer data platform, their CRM platform that is based on all of your personalization history that they've gathered from you. But the decision trees are crafted by the people in my audience. And they love the fact that they've crafted these decision trees, the beautiful, enticing copy and the images that are guiding them through these buying things. That is their secret sauce. And what they're also doing inside these websites is they're testing you all the time. They're using what's lovingly known in the trade as A/B testing, where they might take 80% of the traffic through the main decision tree, but for 20% of the audience, they're actually being taken through the next iteration of the decision tree to see whether that's going to result in a better outcome. You can kind of see where I'm going with this demo. All of this copy, all of this imagery on this retail experience was created in real time, on the fly, using generative AI. The words were adjusted according to the answers to all of the questions in real time. They were actually infused by the trends that were happening on TikTok at that moment in time, on that day. The images were created, not constrained within some pre-compiled digital asset management library that someone had spent hours laboring over the brand compliance. They were liberated in their creation of all of this content. And with a little flourish at the end of it, you can see that we were rocking pretty hard at this point. We started running a little improv session with the audience, and some smart aleck in row 4 came up with the suggestion that I'd like to explore going on holiday on a hiking holiday to Mars. And the platform naturally created the experience for them. It's hugely transformative, this technology, but I'm sitting there with an audience of 500 marketeers who are looking at each other thinking, that's my job. But very quickly, they're beginning to realize that actually writing all that copy, being constrained by that brand guideline, stuck digital asset management library, that was pretty hard yards, that. Look at all of the insight and data and experiential information that I'm getting about my consumers through this. That compensates for perhaps some of the richness in the other bits of my job. That's inevitably going to be the direction of travel for people in my profession. And yes, it is challenging, and it is going to require retraining, and it's going to require a significant amount of thought, but there's much of that that is actually pretty liberating and pretty exciting. So let me just take a quick canter through this. I've got a few videos and things like that that'll probably curtail a little bit because we're slightly behind schedule here. But think of the applications that this technology is being put to work in terms of 4 buckets. There's a whole load around content generation, a lot around summarizing and digesting things. Anybody that's got any kind of course work assignment or something like that will be really familiar with that kind of technology. A little bit I'm going to do just showing you how it's being used in democratizing access to coding, making even crap coders like me look marginally successful, and then what does it look like in search as well. And then the key thing to hold on to is whilst these might be buckets, and they might be buckets in this instance of Gen AI, most of the applications are what you would call probably multimodal. So you're putting lots of these buckets together, and you're also enriching those buckets with non-AI or more traditional AI forms of data science in there as well. So here's some examples, just to kind of whet your appetite. Here's a good little start at the beginning. Back in 2021, Kraft Heinz came up with this terrific marketing campaign. They wanted to point out to the world what we probably already knew, that actually when you were asked a question about what does a ketchup bottle look like, most of you would draw a Heinz ketchup bottle. There you go. So guess what they did in the world of generative AI? Absolute genius. I love that. I love that in so many ways, mainly because it is using generative AI, but also because underneath it all, you can see the utter brilliance of human creativity in there as well. Generative AI didn't get that leap that if you turn a ketchup bottle upside down, it looks like the red light of HAL in 2001 Space Odyssey. That's a human, brilliant moment. But actually, the power of it is energized by the power of generative AI. You've got there that brilliant combination of both incredibly powerful technological creativity with still the propensity for human genius. That is really going to be put to work a lot in this space. So let's canter through these quickly. Let's just look at some summarization. A little bit of a corporate video here, and if I think it's all getting a little bit corporate, I might just cut it quite quickly because you'll probably get it. But here's an example of how this technology is being used in summarization.
Car buying is a big decision. It's the second largest thing a person will do after buying a home. CarMax disrupted the industry by bringing honesty and transparency. We have tens of thousands of cars on our website or through our app. And without talking to a human being, customers can get overwhelmed.
The challenge that we had was that we only could create so much content. There's manual effort, there's research, the writing, there's the proofreading.
Our writers can only produce so much content a month. It would have taken them years to produce enough pages to be relevant.
Azure OpenAI service allows us to summarize all of the custom reviews and put it in a simple to read and understandable sentence.
We're able to take content and feedback from a lot of other customers, curate it, and create this very tailored content for a specific car.
Through the fine-tuning process, we're at 80% of the content goes through without a human needing to be involved. We're estimating an individual would take 11 years to do what OpenAI service has done in days. We have seen a significant increase in our search engine optimization.
Now, the editorial team, they're able to focus their time on the areas most beneficial to the company and to our customers. There's so much possibility with OpenAI service. We're innovating at a scale, at a pace like never before. It's going to change everything we do.
Okay, that's enough of that. So what you've got there is the kind of technology that you're now seeing inside your Amazon e-commerce experiences. So when you look at the feedback at the bottom of the products that you're looking at on Amazon, you're seeing a nice little summary there that's running through all of those different personalized summaries that have been given in there as well. But we're pointing to actually the root of that, which is in one of Microsoft's products, which is called our Azure OpenAI service. So what we want to do is we want to give you the ability to be able to trawl through all of those different sources of content, all of those libraries that you have, and to actually find out what are the most contextually relevant elements of that for every engagement that you're doing. I'll come back to helping you through some of those later. This video is not going to work again. I remember having a project with this. So I won't dwell on this too much, but I might come back to it later. Within most of Microsoft's software as a service applications, you're going to start to see Copilot appearing in everything that we do. And why wouldn't we also put it in our development environments as well? So if you're in Visual Studio or if you're in GitHub, you can have Copilot helping you look like that rockstar coder that you really think you are. Well, certainly I do as well. It'll help you debug, it'll help you summarize, it'll help you create notes, it'll offer you advice, therapy, emotional support. It'll practically make you a cup of coffee at 3 o'clock in the morning just to keep you going and pushing on through with that. It is amazingly powerful at doing this, but all it is doing is it's enabling you to reason over another form of incredibly opaque knowledge so that you can deploy that in an incredibly powerful way. So more on that if you want to go deeper on that in a moment. And then semantic search, and because I spend most of my time in retail and consumer goods, I thought I'd put ASOS's example of this at the moment. So this is your traditional e-commerce experience meets Gen AI. So you're not going to be searching for products anymore. You're just going to be having a conversation about a little black dress or whatever you wear at your weekend do's. But this is going to be increasingly your user interface for when you're doing retail things. And think of all of the data and the telemetry that is coming out of these rich conversational interfaces that's happening in these spaces as well, because we're being enticed into being much more conversational in the way that we relate to these tools. I should say what you're seeing here clearly is an application. And the application is extracted some distance away from the large language model that's underneath it. So when you're starting to think about how you might be worried about putting this kind of technology in the hands of your consumers, you're offsetting some of that control that you might have in those more structured environments. Don't forget the fact that there are layers of governance and control that sit between the large language model that's providing that natural language interface and the reasoning, and ultimately this enticing interface that's sitting on the end of it. There are restrictions that you can put in there, there are controls that you can put in there that ultimately put that presentation up in front of a customer. So let's look at how certainly Microsoft would want you to think through this problem of how you're going to use this kind of technology. And we think about it in terms of 3 steps of navigating through your use of this through the Microsoft platform. The first one is starting with Copilot. And Copilot, as I mentioned before, is Microsoft's use of generative AI inside its own applications. So let's first have a look at Copilot.
Whoa. Straight to the top, never going down, don't wait for the drop. Stand still, that's the motto, yeah. Brand new bands for the auto, oh. Foot to the ground, full throttle. Big energy for the night like lotto. Y'all talk lots, never this quiet. Life like a Seinfeld plot. Vault full of songs, all of them bombs. Something like a minefield guy. Boom. Get it, tickets running out quick. Bet it, never get it out big. Said it, never had to shout it. They said I couldn't never do it, okay, how's this? Fit a week worth of work in a minute. Machine well oiled, you know how I stay efficient. To-do list written, I do this different. Hold up, wait a minute, I ain't finished. Okay. Look, flows the same now. Paved the way, the snakes and fakes are chased out. Back to back to back, I changed the pace now. Had to stack the cash until the bank's out. Straight to the top, never going down, don't wait for the drop.
Amazing, genuinely amazing. And for those of us in Microsoft that have been fortunate to play with this technology for a best part of 12 months now, it is game changing. And I say that without any sense of hyperbole. Chris over there is rocking a really good demo of Copilot if you want to go and have a play with it later in there. The kinds of things I use it for all the time at the moment is my Teams meetings are always now infused by Copilot. So if I turn up late, I can understand exactly what's been said, what people have said about me, what actions they've attributed to me. Those dances around the introductions at the beginning where everybody goes through and talks about it. If you've missed all of those details of, John Smith, who was the Deputy Information Control Officer for Stevenage or whatever, that is all recorded and surfaced, and you can interrogate Copilot and go back and understand who John Smith actually is. There's some coaching abilities in there when you're in meetings as well, that point out maybe that John Smith hasn't actually said anything, hasn't contributed. Maybe you should invite John to offer an opinion on this and to get him engaged. All of those kinds of things. PowerPoint is it's a lifesaver for me. Most of the images that I now use in my PowerPoints, most of the structuring that I'm doing in PowerPoints, I'm now using Copilot to help me do that. And it goes on and on and on. This is Microsoft's productivity helper for you. Think of it like a junior employee that you're helping, managing, that you're directing and encouraging them to create content for you. This is what Copilot is going to do for you in that space. And it is across almost everything that Microsoft is now producing from a product solution point of view. But it doesn't stop there, because we're not just about using this technology in our products. We also want you to develop your own Copilots, to think about the applications and the workflows and the processes that you're using in your organizations at the moment. So what we want you to do is we want you to use your apps and your data to develop your own AI capability. And so we want you to take the Copilots that you're starting with and customize them. We want you to develop your own specific Copilots. And then we want you to riff on the core underlying Gen AI technology underneath it, using things like our Azure OpenAI service. So what you're seeing in these 3 boxes is effectively Microsoft's Gen AI strategy in terms of the way that we want to bring this product to market. So you can see some of those really big use cases that we think represent opportunities for you to start using tools like Copilot in that space underneath. And what we're trying to do is, by offering you these development environments, these studio environments for these products, is to cover that whole continuum from at the left-hand end, pretty much starting with Copilot out of the box, right the way through to the end where you're using Azure AI Studio to access the capability in our Azure OpenAI platform for you to actually really shape your own generative AI experiences. So think of that slider as being absolutely continuous along that journey. We want to give you all of the raw materials to enable you to do that. So think of these as your start points, your use case quick start guides, the things that are going to prompt you into the brainstorming about where you're going to go. Is there anywhere where you want to suddenly liberate your staff by giving them good interaction with the corporate data, the business data that you have, your HR policies, your travel policies, your legal compliance requirements, or things like that that are sitting inside these big opaque documents? Other ways that you want to reason over particularly unstructured data with new forms of intelligent analytics? Do you want to create new campaigns involving ketchup bottles and create new content in your e-commerce experiences? And then do you want to get to those semantic search applications like the ASOS retail applications where you're actually putting those co-pilots in front of your customers? Think of those as being the foundations for the brainstorming around your use cases. That's how we represent the journey from a technology point of view, with our overarching perspective of Studio right at the top. But underneath it all, clearly, is a very strong foundation of comfortable and governed data management. And I think it's always important to put this slide up when you're thinking about developing with our platform, that all of that development is dependent on a really confident understanding of the data that you've got in your environment. So whilst people like me might come in and wave arms and tell stories about great use cases, there is often quite a bit of humble hard yards underneath it all to make sure that you're wrangling and preparing all of that data correctly. Just a quick note about also acknowledging the fact that Microsoft will not always be creating all of the great use case IP associated with this. Microsoft is incredibly dependent on the work of our solution partners, our ISVs, many of you in the room here that are doing brilliant things with the broader Microsoft platform. But if you want to reach out across that partner network and find all kinds of different applications that you can put to work inside your organizations, we're here to help guide you through that environment and put it to work for you. There we go. I'm just going to leave that up right as a summary just to get you to think through this. Remember, if I just summarize and bring to a close what I've been talking about here is that this is a genuine game changer. It is something that perhaps those of us that have got careers in technology would probably feel quite privileged to be part of at the moment. This is a step change in the way that this profession is being delivered and adding value into business at the moment. It does come with care and consideration and a good deal of humility about access to data underneath it all. But the opportunities of innovation using this technology are absolutely endless. And that's what we should be thinking about harnessing as we look forwards. Thank you very much.